So in chapter 16, we encounter what many scholars have called the hardest parable, the parable of the dishonest manager. Now here and you write about this very well in your commentary as well, but it is such a one to grapple with. I think it deserves some commentary here too. I mean, here we have this manager who has been squandering his master's property, and he gets fired, and he's got to bring his books in, but before he brings his books back, he decides that he's going to kind of win the hearts of the townspeople by basically slashing their debts in half and in thirds, and just declaring a fire sale on what they owe the master. And then the master finds out about all this dirty work, and then he commends him in the end. What do you make of that? Commending the dishonest steward.
Yeah, sort of sticks in the craw, doesn't it? I mean, grace and forgiveness is okay up to a point, but
right. But this one's this is going to cost the master dearly.
Then it's very annoying, yes, from our perspective. I do think that it is one of Jesus' two most difficult parables. The other one being the parable of the wedding garment, and depends on the mood I'm in, which one I think is worst. But therefore, also maybe in some ways most fascinating. Because I realize I'm grappling with a mind I have not grasped yet. But among other things, I think the parable leads us into customs that we're not familiar with, and so the dishonest steward is working for the richest man in the district. The whole town depends upon him. And the dishonest steward is the most important man in town because he's his agent. And so that makes it more poignant. And I think that as he rides back into town, he is desperate. He has no hope of any kind of life. As he says, he's too old to dig. And so when he loses his position, I mean, it's serious. The thing that makes no sense to me, and still doesn't and never will, the parable seems to rest on the point that if the dishonest steward can make friends with the townsmen before the actual final axe falls, that they will then be so grateful they'll take care of him. It's not my experience. I mean, as far as I know about human nature, the moment that the townspeople figured out that he was no longer working for the rich man, I mean, their good wishes and goodwill for his favors would last about a day, if that long. So his plan to get good that way won't make any sense to me. So I can't help but think that something's corrupted about how this parable got put together, and that the real magic, with the help of John Bailey and a few others who know Eastern customs better than I do, is that what's really going on is that the dishonest steward is saying to all these people, the master, the rich man, really loves you, really cares about you, always has. And he told me, we're in cahoots on this. I told him that you were in these straits, and he said, well, write this off. So the master's getting the credit for it, which is not blatant in the parable.
Right.
But Bailey claims that's what everybody hearing it would have assumed. That's his only hope. So when the master comes into town to actually fire him, he is the top hero of all time to all the townspeople because he has been so good to them. And second in line is the steward. And so then in that version of the parable, if that's believable, and it certainly is to me, what's really going on is that when the master sees that the people finally love him, alias God, that's what he really wanted all along. He's not worried about losing his money. He's wealth beyond any imagination of humankind.
Right.
So he doesn't mind losing his wealth. He's delighted that finally the steward found a way to make the people love him, appreciate him, be grateful to him, and that's the whole point. So then he goes and slams the door and says, you son of a bitch, well done. You finally figured it out. I am immensely generous, and I love my people, and you finally got them to love me. But boy, you better watch your step, because if you goof one more time.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a very helpful reminder that the that the master in this parable is supposed to be God, and if God is the master, God isn't working like a human master,
Right.
Who maybe wants the people's money more than he wants their hearts.
Yes. And so then everything shifts.
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe we're back into real grace and the real purposes, and then you can see, well, the dishonest steward can change his whole heart too under these circumstances.
Sure.
And realize, I have been trying to be stingy, to please the master, and that's never what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he'll be okay too.
Yes. I mean, doesn't it
But I get to decide how the parable ends by how I live.
Absolutely. Well, and to me, the part of the take home is take risks on grace. I mean, don't just kind of keep, don't just bury it in the ground and think, now I'm playing it safe, because the master certainly doesn't want me giving away too much grace.
Right.
But it's take risks and bank your whole life on the fact that God is actually more generous even than you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And blow the ceilings off and let's move it.
There we go. There we go. I really doubt that if I die and my life flashes before my eyes and God has an evaluation of Eric Elnes, God is going to be saying, the problem I have with you, Eric, is you have been too generous spirited in your life. You've given away too much grace.
Can you imagine? It's fun to put it that way and then say, what's the matter with me?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, moving beyond that one.
To one of my very favoriteest parables.
That's right.
One of my least favorite parables.
Yes, we go from one of the hardest parables into then this one that is just like outrageous about the rich man and Lazarus.
It's hard for me to believe that Jesus actually told that parable, or did somebody just pull that out of the Pharisee hat and stick it in here?
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I've always had a hard time with this one myself.
I think somebody let Charles Dickens in here.
Maybe so. Yeah, that's a good point. You make that in the book too. I thought that was very helpful. Is that we don't take Charles Dickens literally in that whole kind of morality tale.
Well, but his Christmas Carol comes straight off this parable, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, but it ends gloriously.
There we go.
If they won't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't even listen if somebody rises from the dead. That I get. I wanted to back up for just a second. In here, along the way, is one minor little statement where Jesus says, "It's easier for heaven and earth to come to an end or pass away than for one stroke letter of the law to lose its force." And I have never been able to understand why people don't think that's Jesus being sarcastic.
So not one iota go away.
Yeah, so I think that he's just saying, you guys are so hung up on your details that you can't see straight for anything. But most of the time, because it's put in Jesus' mouth by Luke, we forget that he might be humorous, or he might be sarcastic, or there might be something other than just take this at face value, and for pity's sake, never let one letter of the law disappear, which I think is the reverse of what he's saying.
It's like after Simon sinks in the sea, and then the next thing we know, he's renaming Simon to Peter, which means rock, which obviously sinks very easily.
Right.
We forget that Jesus has the capacity to laugh and to joke and to be sarcastic, and my goodness, he might be a lot more interesting than we give him credit for sometimes.
And surely the whole point of the New Testament can't be that we all have to be over toilet trained.
Let's hope not, folks. Let's hope not.